Welcome to GoT Thrones, a Game of Thrones podcast. I'm Alexandra August.
I'm Johnny Kolasinski.
And we are coming at you this week with our discussion of Season 8, Episode 5, The Bells.
You can find this show on Facebook at facebook.com/GotThrones and on Twitter at GotThronesPcast.
You can find me, Alexandra August, on Twitter at ALXAugust, and you can find my work writing about Game of Thrones and other genre shows on Fandom, Screen Rant, Comic Book Resources, and soon StarTrek.com.
You can find me on Twitter at Cycloptico, and I'll be other places eventually, I promise.
He will. But before we start, we want to begin on a slightly serious note. Given the events of this past week.
Yeah, it's caused a lot of issues for a lot of people. And we just want you to know that if you need help, it's out there. We're talking to those of you who might have named your children Khaleesi or Daenerys. And now, well, are they doomed? If you've done that and you live in Florida, which is likely, you can go to jordanlawfl.com and they will assist you for free with changing your child's name so that they're not stuck being the Mad Queen all through grade school. Again, that's jordanlawfl.com. Thank you.
Yeah, glad we got that out of the way.
Yeah.
That's a real thing, by the way.
That's real, and it's fantastic.
Yep.
It's wonderful.
Yes, there is a law firm that is offering assistance with name changes. Should you want to, turn the corner on that one?
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people are going to justify this in their heads as like, whatever, she got it's a strong name.
Yeah. If you can't handle me at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best.
You want a whore buyer, you want a queen earner.
Yeah. If you want a queen burner.
Apparently.
Yeah. So this is a controversial episode.
Yeah, very divisive. Very divisive.
I think that you and I, in our pre-show conversation, both agreed that we feel different about it after sitting with it for a day.
Exactly.
I think just like everybody else, I was in shock when Dany went Aerys.
Worse than Aerys, if you think about it.
Yeah, because she actually got shit done.
Yeah. She didn't burn just a couple of people.
Yeah. Ultimately, though, I think that I do have issues with this episode, and we'll talk about them, but it's a lot more in execution than in intention or the shit that happened.
Yeah, I think I come down on this, my overall point of view is that there really isn't a right or a wrong answer when it comes to your reaction. Not that there really ever is. This is all subjective, but especially in this case, because on the one hand, there's some very good evidence for why Dany would have eventually gone down this path, but pacing and execution matter when it comes to storytelling and how well a story sticks the landing. And I think that's really where the wheels came off for me personally. So, but yeah, had you asked me Sunday night, I was ready to burn the world down. I was so furious. But I think that's also a function of it's been a long time, and we have expectations and investments of this series. And even for, people like you and me who do this semi-professionally and are as much critics as we can, or as critical as we can be, and try to maintain a level of objectivity, I think it's impossible when you have invested in a series to the degree that we have, or to the degree that audiences have, that have no reason to be objective and have no reason to look at this with an eye, or just looking at it through an emotional lens, because that's how a lot of people take entertainment. So it's weird. Like, the episode was divisive. The reactions to it have not been for me. I understand everybody's point of view. Mm-hmm. But
yeah, I'll agree with that. Except for I do have, and Jimmy, if you're listening, I'm calling you out on this. I do have a family member who's saying that the King's Landing folks were, compared to everyone else in Westeros, at least more deserving because everyone in King's Landing is an asshole.
Oh, yeah, that's we can get to that, but that's a point I definitely wanted to make. Like, sorry, like, I wish I had more sympathy. It was a good thing they put a mother and child in that sequence, because otherwise it would have been like, yeah, shame, bitch. Shame.
Yeah, so let's start talking about the pieces of this episode.
Yeah, I think overall, just as a Miguel Sapochnik battle episode, I preferred this to The Long Night.
Absolutely. It was well, we could see it. There's that.
Exactly. Very simply.
The thing that I think it did most right is the tension was high throughout.
Mm-hmm.
And The Long Night, it ebbed and flowed for me, and from the opening
pacing, a lot of it was sort of like, it wasn't as cohesive an episode as, and I'm a broken record, as Battle of the Bastards or Blackwater or the Battle for Castle Black. The Long Night was beautiful and really wonderful in a lot of ways, but did not come together as a whole as much as I wished it would have.
Yeah, and for all of the flaws that people will point out as far as decision making goes, I haven't heard that anywhere, that it was a ebbs and flows episode.
No.
That the execution of it as television was hit or miss. I think anyone who says that this wasn't a well-crafted episode is probably pissed off about something else.
Yeah, I think it's really difficult to look at this and say it was a poorly told story in terms of the episode. I think there's a lot you can say in terms about how certain arcs have been executed over the course of 8 seasons, but this particular episode, I thought, really grabbed you from the moment it opened and kind of didn't let go until the conclusion, when you wanted it to let go and you wanted to escape it. I found myself questioning why Arya was there, just from a narrative standpoint. Haven't really been invested in her killing Cersei, and I kind of thought she left the revenge thing behind a little bit, so I didn't need this bookend to that, and it felt far more like, well, we want to see Arya in battle again because she's the most fun to watch. And it's not that that's not true, but I thought a lot of this could have been given to Jon, and setting up these two characters, setting up him and Dany for having this final confrontation. Not that I don't want more of Arya. Like, it's tough to, I'm of two minds about it, just because we only have one episode left, and I would have been kind of sad if the last thing Arya did of significance was kill the Night King, as wonderful as that was. But I was just sort of like, she doesn't feel relevant to this story. She hasn't been involved in this story for a long time. The Hound made sense to me, obviously. I mean, in as much as he could, and in as much as we all know how I feel about Clegane Bowl and how I feel like that character has evolved beyond that desire for vengeance ruling his life. But he fit better into this overall story, I think, than Arya did. But that might be a nitpick. But
I liked Arya and the Hound. I really loved Arya and the Hound, and the that was the conclusion to their arc, and I thought that was beautiful, and I liked seeing it. I'll agree with you that we didn't need Arya learning that war is hell, and getting pissed off enough to potentially, maybe it's going to be Arya that takes out Dany or convinces Jon to next week.
That's part of me is wondering if she's gonna if she'll wear someone's face and do it.
Yeah.
That's the theory that I'm going with right now, because I can't see Jon mercy killing Dany, or maybe Tyrion poisons her.
Well, there's the theory about Varys that he was talking in the very beginning to the servant girl who was saying the queen won't eat,
Oh.
And the theory is that the queen won't eat poison. That Martha, the little servant girl,
was trying to poison her.
Was was trying to poison Daenerys on Varys's order, and it wasn't just her being a little bird spy.
That makes sense. I like that even better.
Because
Because when Tyrion, I think 2 episodes ago, or I think it was just last week, when Tyrion basically begs Varys, like, please don't do this, please don't do this. It seemed to me that Tyrion was terrified Varys was going to kill Dany, was going to try and assassinate her.
Yeah.
Because we know that's within Varys's both moral and physical, frankly, capabilities. Like, he's more than practically able to do that, and he certainly doesn't have a moral quandary about doing that, given the way Dany is going.
Yeah.
Speaking of Varys, I was sort of sad that he got such an anticlimactic finish. That's another thing about this entire episode. It felt, for as much happened, everything felt anticlimactic, from Cersei and Jaime's death to certainly Euron's death to the Hound to Clegane Bowl in and of itself. And I'm a person who would we know my feelings on that, but again, I was like, at the end of the day, if it's a good sword fight, fine. And it really wasn't even that. So
yeah, it all of it felt like an epilogue as opposed to a climax.
Yeah,
the last moments of pretty much every character.
Yeah. It except for poor Harry Strickland.
Yeah,
that was a climax.
Harry Strickland being there is, like, the Golden Company wasn't it. We could have spent more money on Ghost and had less Golden Company. But yeah, Varys's death served largely to push Daenerys forward and push Tyrion forward.
Yeah, and I just thought as a character, I think we're going to talk, I'm kind of holding my thoughts on pacing and compressed storylines when we get to Dany's final act, but I feel like, my biggest complaint with this season is that I wish they had done more episodes. Like, I did not need the spectacle as much as I needed the spectacle to have been earned. But yeah, I liked Varys. I thought it was very true to character for Varys to have that last moment of honesty and say, I hope I'm wrong. I thought that was kind of some wonderful last words for him.
Yes.
And he and Tyrion having that moment of honest friendship was lovely as well. Yeah.
I agree on all counts. And I think that Varys was the best player of the game. And knew that this was, he expected this. And that's, I think, why he was sending ravens out to both houses of Westeros that probably still exist. Where would you send those?
Yeah.
They're not going to Hornhill.
No. Everyone at, Sam already knows.
Yeah,
High Garden is
exactly.
Empty. The twin. I really doubt Edmure Tully gives a fuck.
Yep.
Edmure Tully's purse has been out of fucks for a long time.
It's going to Manderley.
Edmure Tully is closed to ravens. He is deleting all ravens.
Seen but not read.
He's leaving I don't know. He's leaving everyone unread.
Yeah. So I do think that this was a conscious sacrifice on Varys' part.
I think,
and
too,
not and as opposed to him getting caught.
I wish
it was he took more risks than he ever needed to before, because the stakes were higher for him.
Yeah, I think I will say my one sort of nit to pick about this thing. One, as if there's only one. You want to nitpick? You can start your own podcast. I kind of wish we would have seen Varys get caught. Did someone just see the ravens going out and we're like, or did Dany just...
Well, he didn't get caught. Tyrion tattled.
Well, but Dany said someone has betrayed me.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm wondering, So
it was either the ravens or it was...
her noticing this new little girl who's staring at her way too long.
Yeah. Trying to you know, here
Martha.
comes the dragon.
Martha.
Yeah, that's also a choice that we can nitpick.
I like.
Why did you pick that name?
Subtle nod to the Handmaid's Tale. You don't have the right. I also liked Varys' conversation with her as well at the end, and how he encourages her. He's like, I know it's hard, and it just I liked that moment where you got him. It's almost chilling, though, how kindly he is to these children. I don't, like, because I think it's question, like, on the one hand, okay, he protects them to a degree, but not really, because he's actively putting them in danger. And I don't know if his logic is that, like, well, kids are easily manipulated, so if I go down, they will be protected. But I think that was, on one hand, a really lovely peek inside Varys' nature, which I think at its core is essentially kind and well-meaning, especially given like what he vows to protect the small folk, but at the same time he's a great example too of how everyone at this point has a considerable amount of blood on their hands, except for maybe Jon.
Right.
And if you look at who has blood on their hands and who doesn't, and who's effective as a political leader and who isn't, I think that sums up a lot of the series, or just the essential themes of the series, is that, like, when you're working in this particular structure, there's absolutely no way to get anything done without getting your hands very dirty, because just begging people to share your values does not work. And you being the only person who's honest and loyal in a world full of people who are dishonest and disloyal doesn't work.
Yeah, and I think that you're absolutely right about him, about everyone, no matter their intentions, having just as much blood on their hands. And Dany, to some extent, echoes that when she says that what she's doing is showing mercy to the next generations.
Yeah.
In her mind.
Well, and I thought that was an interesting moment, because what's interesting about Dany, especially this season and last, is that had she followed her own instincts, none of this would have happened. Had she not listened to Tyrion, I'm trying to think of something more specific, but had Dany just kind of been allowed to be Dany, then
she would have been sitting the Iron Throne and then heading north.
Yeah. She wouldn't have been... I don't think that she would have been driven to this point.
No.
To this level of desperation, because she would have won this war pretty easily, and maybe she would have sacrificed the lives in King's Landing. Maybe that would have happened, but...
I don't think to the same extent, though. I think she would have been a lot more measured with her destruction.
I think that's a little frustrating, too, because, really it's the Scorpions that stop her from just going down to King's Landing and destroying the Red Keep immediately. Oh, yeah, because they wanted... Tyrion convinced her to sort of talk it out with Cersei and be like, listen, if we just strangle her, then it's fine. Then we'll save lives, when, in point of fact, it's just all a mess.
Yep.
But speaking of Tyrion...
I loved his scene with Jaime.
Oh my god. I also loved that comedic moment. He's like, how'd they find you? And Jaime just holds his hand up.
Yeah. The stupidest Lannister.
Oh, man. That was...
Yeah.
This is the moment that I've been wanting for the Lannister siblings. I've said, like, I just want them to go to therapy and hug it out. And this is...
And they did.
Oh, I loved this. I actually didn't hate Cersei and Jaime at the end of the day, but we'll get to that. But, oh my gosh. Tyrion very simply telling Jaime how much he means to him, and Jaime hating himself so much, and yet Tyrion saying, like, you were all I had. You were the reason, like, basically, like, giving him credit that Jaime's never given himself. And that was just beautiful.
Yes, it was it was flat out wonderful.
And Tyrion, like, I also like that we're seeing Tyrion just kind of lose it at this point. And he, like, the wheels are coming off. Dany is far beyond his control, if she was ever in his control. And now he's realizing that, like, this mission that I think was redemption for him after murdering his father and killing Shay and his life just being a shambles in Westeros. He finds Dany, and this quest, this mission of hers is redemptive. And now what has he brought?
Now it's not.
Now it's really not. And what has he brought to Westeros, and what has he done? And I think he's imploding right now. And to see him finally be like, all right, you know what? I've tried to help the world. I've tried to help the population. I clearly can't do that. So I'm going to help you guys get out of town. Like, just take her and go.
Mm-hmm. Again, just like Varys, knowing that he's signing his own death warrant by doing so.
Yeah, that was a chilling moment between Dany and Tyrion as well, when she says...
You can fail me once more. You're next in line, basically.
Yeah, you fail me one more time, it'll be the last, or something like that. It was just... It's a color... I think it just ultimately speaks to why it was so hard to watch her do what she does later. It's just, that's a color on Dany that breaks my heart, because we loved Dany because she was this, like, abused creature. And we saw her on a journey to regain her strength. And the last thing you want her to do is become the thing that made her. And she is. And it's...
Yeah.
Devastating. I didn't realize how invested I was in her arc until this Sunday. Until I felt the level of disappointment that I felt watching her make that choice. And it was just heartbreaking. But not as heartbreaking as Euron Greyjoy's death.
Oh, yeah. Honestly, if there's one moment that was truly earned this episode, it's Euron dying in a scene that doesn't matter at all. That fulfilled Euron's arc in a way that, frankly, I couldn't have predicted last year. That was a truly beautiful moment.
A truly beautiful...
When he just showed up on the beach out of nowhere and happened to be in the perfect place in the perfect time to kill Jaime Lannister, but not quite kill Jaime Lannister, and we didn't even know why he was fighting Jaime Lannister. No. That was Euron Greyjoy.
In a nutshell.
Yeah. It condensed into his finest parts.
See, like, I feel like you're being facetious to a degree, because I actually, like, I was so annoyed with that, because I thought, like, you could have done anything with Euron Greyjoy.
Absolutely.
You could have, like, he could have left and been like, fuck this noise, I'm going to Asshai and I'm never coming back, y'all are crazy. And or like, this is
he could have taken Gendry's rowboat.
Yep.
And then 4 years from now we get a spin-off.
He could have been a mermaid, and I'd been like,
he could have been a mermaid.
Great, works for me. And I just thought, like, you've already thrown the baby out with the bathwater when it comes to Euron Greyjoy. I don't think anybody's invested in his death, certainly not at Jaime's hands. I mean, I wanted him to try and kill Cersei, then Cersei would be like, JK, and push him out a window or something.
Yeah.
It was just so lame. And then, like, eventually, like, okay, so you're gonna, injure Jaime so we don't think he's going to survive. But then he does survive enough to get up, like, countless flights of stairs and then get back down them to die standing after he's been stabbed in the side, in the kidneys twice.
Yep.
So that ultimately was a moment that was really frustrating, because I, at the same time, you're right. It's like, it made sense in its goofiness. It was consistent with how just bonkers this character.
Oh, I hated it. That was entirely facetious.
Oh, okay. I thought you made a pretty good point about
the fact that his arc was shit, so he died shitty. Yeah.
It was just, I was like, dude, in his shit though, he was glorious.
Yeah, I enjoyed watching Ronnie Greyjoy, but not because of what he brought to the overall plot.
No,
enjoyed
watching Ronnie Greyjoy because Pilu Aisbag is a genius.
Yes.
And was having nothing but the most fun. I saw a BuzzFeed article that was like, fans hate Euron Greyjoy, but the actor who plays him doesn't care. I'm like, well, of course not.
Yeah.
Like, why would he? He has the best job in the world and no one's invested in him. He can do whatever he wants.
Yeah. He could have had a Starbucks cup in his hand, and people would have said that's not that was still one of his better moments.
What did we say last week? Could have shown up in like him and Gendry could show up in spurs, tuxedos, a 10-gallon hat, driving a Ferrari all at once, and I wouldn't bat an eyelash. But like, do what you got to do.
That fits. I'm trying not to Tuesday afternoon quarterback too much on this, but there's two ways I think that the Euron Jaime scene could have been stronger. Number one,
not happening.
Ronnie just happens to be on one of the few boats that survive, and he nopes right out of there, and that's the end of his arc. Ain't worth this shit. I'm gonna go be a raider again because that's a lot more fun.
Or if like Harry Strickland somehow makes it out and they both see each other and just jump on a boat and sail back to Essos. Like
exactly. Number two, and this one's a little more serious. If it had happened after Jaime had got to Cersei, and this is you're taking my queen, and he's making a last stand, but he's making a last stand. He's making an ultimately worthless last stand still, but it's, I'm protecting what is mine because I want it fair and square, and you're trying to take her away from me, and I don't care that everything is literally falling down around me.
Exactly.
You're still taking what's mine, as opposed to, there's a guy I want to stab, so I'm going to stab him.
It's like, but do you want to stab him? Jaime has been irrelevant to you. That's been the dynamic of their relationship, that Euron walked in and stole Jaime's girl and made jokes about Jaime's hand and putting a finger in like that. Euron is in no way threatened by Jaime enough for me for them to justify his last words being, "I'm the man who killed Jaime Lannister." Euron is a mad dog, so you could there are ways to play with that make him completely unhinged, but also grounded in previous characterization,
grounded in crazy,
grounded in his motivation. He did I'm guessing I might need to watch the after show to see again, but I'm guessing they needed to get him out of the way and they needed to wound Jaime, as ineffectual as that was. But I feel like the justification behind that was basically, well, he's crazy, so it does he'll just do whatever, and I shouldn't speak for those guys, but that's what it felt like. It felt like this just completely out of left field lunacy. And for a guy like Ronnie Greyjoy, you could have gone so many different, more entertaining. Like, it was funny when he left in season 7. It was like, can they swim? Cool. No? Peace. That was funny. I was fine with that. I would have been fine never seeing this man again. Like, I don't know. Ronnie Greyjoy deserved better. Is my point of view.
Yeah. But still pour one out for one of the most enjoyable. He was a strong character.
Yes, he was.
And thank God his eyeliner was waterproof.
Thank goodness. I think I also want to talk a little bit about the beginning of the battle and how apparently either Drogon is just a maverick and a Top Gun and a way better pilot than Rhaegal was, or Viserion, or this is not great writing in that Dany gets rid of literally every single scorpion in 10 minutes on the ships and on the battlements. Like, it's virtually no threat. This is the part when people are talking about the lack of connective tissue and how this season is event driven, but without anything really being
event driven as opposed to character driven.
Exactly. And how the showrunners have maybe just decided, like, okay, we're going to give you the moments that you've been asking for because there's no way to tie this up in a way. We have
waypoints that we're traveling to, and we're going to get there by having scenes between them
quickly and aggressively as possible. Yeah, so that was a big one for me that I was, as much, again, as I did love the moment when they're waiting outside the gates and Harry Strickland and Grey Worm and Jon are just kind of staring at each other like, and you hear the dragon squawk, and all of a sudden the gates of King's Landing just explode. That was a shut the fuck up moment. I was very into it. But also,
that was...
It was really satisfying to watch Dany do that, but I was just like, nobody has explained to me why they didn't lay down well, and they didn't ground well enough why it worked this time and why it wouldn't have, why
it didn't work last week.
Yeah, like I get that I kind of got that she swoops down out of the sky, and because she goes into such a deep dive, Euron and the Iron Fleet don't have time to react, so I kind of understand that, but
she could have done the same thing. The one difference I would say between last week and this week is Rhaegal wasn't piloted, so maybe that's an excuse, but that's really just me playing devil's advocate. It doesn't cover the fact that she didn't take down the fleet immediately afterwards.
Yeah, and it doesn't... Yeah, I mean, I know I'm applying logic to a dragon fight with weapons that don't exist, but it doesn't make sense. They waited such a long time to fire, first of all, and they also, I think at the end of the day, like, we can, you can try and justify it as much as you want, and there's certainly something to be said for the fact that, like, yeah, if she shocks them enough and they're scared enough at seeing a dragon that they might delay and give her the opportunity
but they saw one yesterday,
and I even then, like, my question isn't why didn't she immediately attack the Iron Fleet in that moment, because I think that losing Rhaegal in front of her, even Dany knows at that point, like, okay, I can't face all of these people by myself, and I can't lose two dragons at once. But there's just absolutely no reason she should win this time when she didn't win the other day. Like, it just didn't make any sense, especially when you consider, like, there are scorpions on the battlements. Like, I get the fleet is far away, but that's why there were so many. Like, and she dispatches them with ease. Even if Drogon had gotten wounded, I would have been like, okay, all right, this is just, sound and fury. Dany's got adrenaline pumping, and she and Drogon are in such mental concert that she's precision dragon flying, which makes sense. But that to me was also like, it just was like, wait, this murdered one of your kids the other day, and now you are dispatching them with literally the greatest of ease. Yeah.
You know my solution to that? Kill Rhaegal this week instead of last week.
Ooh. Yeah, I think...
Because that also, like, would tip the scales for Dany.
Yeah, because then you have Missandei. Missandei's death and Jorah's absence, I think... I think would have been enough for me to justify her being dangerously unhinged. And not eating, and... Like, that would have, honestly, Missandei's death would have sold that to me. I didn't need Rhaegal to die in the same episode. As tragic as that was, and, it worked in its own way. But Rhaegal dying this episode would have justifiably, in my mind, tipped her from, okay, I don't think they're going to surrender, but if they surrender, I'll deal with it, to fire and blood. Exactly. So I want to talk about Cersei a little bit, because I really just want to open this by saying Lena Headey has been done so dirty by this season and by this show. She is arguably their strongest actor. I think, kind of by far, at least when it comes to the leading characters. And she has looked out windows and
drank wine.
Yeah, and alternatively drank, smirked, and satted. Yeah. And this week was no different. She just watched the city fall. I did fucking love when Sandor comes across them on the stairs and goes, "Your Grace." That was, and then after he kills Qyburn, she just scoots out of frame. We've never seen, like, it's been so long since we've seen Cersei any kind of goofy or vulnerable or just sort of just like completely out of her element and nervous.
It's the first time we've seen her uncomposed since the walk.
Yeah. And she's really never been any kind of, I think it, like, seasons 3 and 4, when she's lipping off to Marjorie and Loras all the time, like, that's the last time she was almost lightheartedly funny. That's the last time we've really gotten any humor at the expense of her character, and it was a little bit easier to swallow because she was just drunk. And it was and it was kind of funny because, like, she had lost all of her children and been walked naked through the streets of her city. But yeah, that was I really loved how, like, I will say I'm surprised that probably one of my favorite parts of the episode happened around Clegane Ball. Did not see that one coming.
Yeah.
Twist.
I still don't know whether Cersei ordered the bells.
Yeah, that was another thing. I was like, wait, what?
Did her armies surrender without her?
My guess is that when they laid down their swords, I loved that moment. I thought that was a brilliant moment, and I think a really seminal moment for just the Lannister house over the course of the series. I thought that was really lovely, especially facing Jon. But aside from that, I think I have a feeling the swords got laid down, and then someone else, like someone who saw that, somebody in power, somebody was like, cool, we're ending this, I'm ending this, let's ring the bells.
Yeah.
That was my guess.
That was my interpretation too, that it wasn't a Cersei choice.
No, I think
or a Qyburn choice.
No, I mean, Qyburn told her the entire city had basically fallen. Yeah. And she was like, it's gonna be fine, it's still good, it's still good.
Because the Red Keep's still here.
Red Keep has never fallen. It's still good. It's still good.
It's gone, isn't it?
Give it up, Cersei. Keep ain't coming back.
Yeah, I absolutely. This is kind of going away from our show notes, but I loved that moment, and I loved Grey Worm also snapping.
Yeah, Grey Worm.
We'll talk about that more.
Did earn his downfall.
Oh yeah,
that made complete sense. That absolutely.
Yeah.
And I honestly don't really blame him.
Nope.
But I think when it
and
I don't know that we need to talk about Clegane Bowl again.
I do want to talk about Jaime and Cersei, the death itself. Do you think that was earned?
It's another one of those moments that I don't necessarily feel like it was earned per se,
but it made sense.
I thought it was beautiful. And again, like as somebody who would have much preferred Jaime to stay with Brienne and like have northern babies, and for them to have a sitcom where he complains about how cold it is and she wraps him in a bear hug, and
ghost talks.
Yeah, totally. Like, I would have let Tormund visits, and it's kind of awkward, but they all become friends at some point. They set him up with this other northern girl. I don't know. Lots of ideas, but that makes sense to me. It makes sense to me that he would have had this tragic ending. And as much as I wish that he had kind of moved beyond his programming, the show has decided to make him inexorably connected to Cersei. And I think when seen in that context, the two of them dying together and her telling him that she doesn't want to die and that she doesn't want their kid to die, and having one last moment of redeemability and becoming human, and her
becoming
last
human
moment,
for just a
moment, I thought that made it's weird. I thought that moment earned their entire relationship, because for the entire series, basically, we've seen Cersei shit on Jaime, for lack of a better word. She takes him for granted. She sleeps with other people. She lies to him. She uses him. But we know that she loves him. She's just utterly incapable of expressing that in a healthy fashion because she's been abused her entire life.
Yeah.
And so now you get, like, it gave me, seeing them together in those last moments gave me insight into what their relationship must have been like when she was first married to Robert, and it was probably really terrible. And he was her only solace and her only comfort. And I don't know. There was something about that I thought was really lovely and really poignant about them being buried together and like possibly being found together, holding on to each other.
I'll agree with you. I think that the way we got there over the past 4 hours was frustrating, but it was true to them.
And I think there's something. We like to lampoon and lambast the twincest, but at the same time, There's something kind of weirdly poetic about the Golden Twins. The golden, beautiful Lannister twins losing everything and only having each other and holding on to each other from their last moments. Like, that was something that, again, I think it was good that they humanized Cersei kind of at the last minute and got her down to her core, which is just that she just wants to live with Jaime and have that baby.
Mm-hmm.
And she doesn't want to die, and she's made a huge mistake.
Yeah.
And it just, yeah, I was a little annoyed that she got a more sympathetic turn than Dany did this week, but I have a feeling that'll change next week. I don't know.
Me neither. I'm definitely excited for next week.
Yeah, I'm excited for who's going to kill Dany, how she's going to die. Is she going to trip off of a...
Yep.
I think...
Both of us have done a good job, at least I have, of avoiding those spoilers that came out.
Jesus Christ. It is like... Have they just...
It's everywhere.
Have the showrunners just leaked it? Or are they just like, we don't care. We just don't... I don't... Let it go. Let it ride.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Turns out Tom Holland is in the last episode and he ruined it all. He plays Ed Sheeran's brother.
Just walking
who takes
around,
the Iron Throne.
Walking around the background reading a script out loud. Guys, this is crazy. Have you read this?
Have you read this, Mr. Stark? It's Targaryen.
Oh, I'm in the wrong story.
Oh, deep Sondheim cut.
If any of you got that, tweet at us.
Yeah. So from there, we talked a little bit about the Hound and Arya. Anything more to say that we didn't?
I don't know if it felt abbreviated because I really wanted a little bit more, or if it felt abbreviated because I can never get enough of them. But I was glad that one of the moments we did get that did feel like it had been somewhat earned this season alone, because they've had a lot of screen time together, was him finally, instead of being gruff and a dick to her just because he doesn't have time to be anything else, he actually takes a minute and says and shows that he cares about her a little bit. And we just never get those moments from Sandor, even though we know, because Rory McCann is so good, that they're bubbling beneath the surface.
Mm-hmm. And
there was just this kind of peace to him, and he genuinely was sort of like, don't do this, please don't, the fall's gonna get her, you don't need to do this, don't kill yourself for this. And seeing him look out for her that way is just like seeing him, that image of him on the horse leaving the Red Wedding after he's knocked her out. We see him act those feelings a lot. We don't really ever see him express them. And I thought that was great. And I loved her thank you to him.
Yes.
It reminded me a little bit of Bran telling Theon that he's a good man.
Yep. And that for me, ironically, is, I know we don't want to spend too much time on Clegane Bowl, but
I wanted 3
Clegane
swords
Bowl
and
itself,
a gun. 3 swords and a gun. 1 sword and a knife. Sorry, go on. You were saying.
Clegane Bowl, to me, the moment itself was great, even if it was a little bit Revenge of the Sith. But and I screamed. Eye things are the one thing that really screw me up, because if you, I was totally squeamish about the thumbs in the eye sockets, because that's the one way to screw with me is eye stuff, because, well, I've just got the one, guys.
I've noticed a lot. Someone I know on Twitter saw the same thing. A lot of people I find eye stuff doesn't do it for me. It's anorexia is that for me, which I don't suffer from an eating disorder at all. But seeing people starving and seeing people who've been emaciated for some reason is really hard for me to watch, and I'm makes me squeamish. But a lot of people were just like, oh, okay, ah.
Yeah. My only issue with it was the fact that because Cersei had escaped and Arya wasn't there, and it wasn't a fight to win a battle, the stakes were very low. The stakes were just Clegane Bowl, and this is something we want to see, and not this is something we want to see that is going to affect the rest of the story.
That's a good point. I think I would have been a little bit more behind Clegane Bowl. My problem with Clegane Bowl is that it's incredibly contrived and it's utter fan service, and the worst, and like fucking Fight Club fan service, the kind that just really repels me, the sort of violence for violence sake, because it's fun to see two dudes go at each other. Like, that's what wrestling is for. Go watch wrestling. And there's like been no shortage of big dudes fighting each other on this show. So like and it's, again, like, it feels like it's just such a lame point to tie Sandor's character to tie his entire arc to. But I've said all this before and I'll stop. I think you're right. Like, had something happened and they were surprised and either Arya was in danger or this had more this fight had offered more from a strategic standpoint than just Sandor, both of these guys working out their differences, then I probably would have enjoyed it a little bit more, because it was cinematic. I mean, it was interesting to have the castle kind of falling down around them. It
was beautiful.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of when Spike and Buffy have sex for the first time and the house literally falls down around them. Obviously not in a sexual fashion. It doesn't remind me of that, but just the idea that the force of this confrontation is breaking the world. I liked that. I think Miguel Sapochnik and the DP did a wonderful job of that. My problem with it, though, kind of was I would have liked it had Qyburn and Cersei just run away, had seen this coming and run away, as opposed to Sir Gregor finally achieving a moment of sentience for the first time in years, when he had seen his brother before. Like, I don't know if they're going to parse it by saying, oh, Sandor like wasn't threatening him in season 7, so he didn't do anything, but all of a sudden Gregor having this convenient agency that makes Clegane Bowl happen was just so clunky and dumb. Though, like I said, I will forever be grateful for you, Grace, and Cersei sneaking out of frame. Thank you, folks.
With that,
we're here.
Yeah, again, we're at Daenerys and Grey Worm and Jon Snow and the horse. The horse ex machina.
It's Tywin Lannister's horse.
Oh, he's back.
He survived.
Yay!
All of a sudden, just starts speaking.
It's Mace Tyrell's horse.
Mace Tyrell's horse died in the sept.
I
believe.
You think you rode the horse into the sept?
Yeah, no, I think the horse followed Mace into the sept, and he couldn't get it to go back out. Whereas Tywin Lannister's horse is like developing Google Maps as we speak.
Yeah.
Tywin
Lannister's horse sits the Iron Throne.
Oh man.
Tywin Lannister's horse is going to go visit Gendry next season and give him the recipe to Valyrian steel.
Tywin Lannister's horse is going to be the Lord of Storm's End before long.
The Lady of Storm's End.
Jen rolls up and Gendry's like, what is this stupid horse doing here? All of a sudden they lock eyes.
At last.
Through the night. Oh my gosh. Oh, it was worth it.
Yeah. And if that happens, we'll be telling you about it next week on God Thrones.
God, oh my gosh, I will tell you this. If that horse had spoken, we'd be having a much, much different podcast right now.
Yeah.
That horse if Arya had looked at that horse and they had done that long, slow shot, for what reason, I don't know, had we gotten up there and all of a sudden she locks eyes with it and the horse just goes, come with me.
Come with me if you want to live. Or even if they just locked eyes and nodded at each other. Fade to black.
Oh man, you're exactly right.
They lock eyes, nod at each other. Arya pulls needle out.
Or just like, even it would have been kind of funny if she stumbled out into the open and the horse stumbled out at the same time, and they both had this like aggrieved look on their face, and she just like leaps 20 feet like she did to get on the Night King. And, the horse is already in motion. Man. Yeah, Arya's
Or if Andre the Giant had led the horse out.
Oh man. Or yeah, if she jumped from 30 feet down and her like tunic had blossomed out and billowed out. So many ways they could have gone with that.
Yeah. But instead, they went ways that we didn't really like with Daenerys and with Jon Snow.
Yeah. See, Jon Snow, my problem quote, like, I think this is more of a character, like, my in-universe problem with Jon Snow is that Jon, and this isn't really his fault, Jon is a warrior. Jon's a great battle commander.
Mm-hmm.
Jon's the guy you want in a crisis. Jon is not a guy who should be in anyone's political inner circle. Not at this level. And
yeah,
Jon
has the political savvy of a young Ned Stark.
Yeah, a young Ned Stark. And we saw how much political savvy the old Ned Stark had, so.
Yes.
I think it was, I do think, but I think it works for the overall story because I think Jon is going to realize what Ned didn't, which is, fuck this noise. I'm going back up north. Mm-hmm. You are on your own. I am ineffectual here. I can love you. I can be loyal to you. I can operate on all of my values. I can do everything right according to my internal moral blueprint. And the world still crashes down. And I'm still forced to do things. I'm still forced to watch things that are awful. Like, him seeing the death and destruction that Daenerys is capable of and will now be impossible to hold back from. Mm-hmm. There's nothing that stands in Daenerys' way. Like, she's destroyed the city. She's fully ruled through fear. She's won the war. She's not listening to anyone anymore. And she is emotionally unhinged. Mm-hmm. Jon, I think, is seeing just how pointless it is for him to stay, and how this also might be the point where he's motivated to take the throne from her. Mm-hmm. I really hope he doesn't, because I feel like it's not going to go well for him. And I don't have Jon on the Iron Throne. I kind of don't have Jon surviving the series. Like, I'm iffy on that. I feel like he could. Yeah. I feel like Joanna Robinson's article on the interesting parallels between The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings and how Jon makes more sense as Frodo than Aragorn. I don't necessarily think he'll die, but I think he'll destroy, quote, the Ring of Power, which we could term as Dany or a dragon, and just leave because he's unable to cope with the world as it is anymore, given his experiences. Yeah. So Jon kind of worked for me, as doofy as he is to watch, just sort of stare in horror at everything. Yeah.
Is this the first time, other than when he literally got stabbed in the back, that we've seen Jon really feel betrayed?
That's interesting that you took that point of view. I didn't necessarily get betrayal from him just so much as the horror, but that makes sense. That obviously is, he was betrayed.
Because this is the Dany that he loved, and obviously she's not quite the same person she was on that boat.
Well, not only the Dany that he loved, but the Dany that he vouched for.
Yeah.
The Dany that he put
and followed.
Yeah, and followed and empowered. Without his army, this doesn't happen to a degree, to the degree that it is.
Yeah.
He's impossible. I think what I got from Jon was just horror at, I guess I just got it was more internal, that, oh my God, what is happening and what side am I on? These guys have surrendered and we're killing them. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's nuts for Jon Snow.
Yeah. I feel bad for that kid.
Yeah, I think that, again, Monday morning quarterbacking, if we didn't want Dany to go full villain, which I don't know if they wanted it or not, for me the solution is she starts at the Red Keep and works out rather than works her way in. She takes out the military target regardless of the civilian costs, but it's still this is what I'm doing to destroy my enemy, and then she keeps going.
Wait, say that again.
So we saw Dany attacking King's Landing and not the Red Keep when the bells start to ring. And to me, if she had attacked King's Landing first, if she attacked the Red Keep first.
So she was perched on the tower.
Yeah,
something.
And I'm taking out the Red Keep. There are going to be civilian casualties, but this is how I destroy Cersei. This is how I take King's Landing and take the Seven Kingdoms, is by laying waste to the Red Keep. And then she just keeps going. Out into King's Landing, where it's all civilian targets.
Bucket!
Yeah. That to me is a little bit more... Justified isn't the right word, but it's escalating as opposed to snapping.
Yeah, I think. Well, okay. So I've kind of divorced myself of picking over the specifics of this because I spent 3 hours yesterday and today writing 2,000 words on them. So, which you will be able to read on Screen Rant later today. I think we're in the end game now, and they are trying to get everything done. And I believe, and it'll be way better written, but I believe that this is George's end game. That Dany was never going to sit the Iron Throne. I kind of had her as an Elizabethan character, as an analog to Elizabeth I, and that she would sit the Iron Throne and usher in a new era. But I don't think that's going to happen.
No,
at all. And I think
she's more of a Thatcher.
Oh, a Thatcher with dragons. Can you imagine? I think really what we're looking at here is the idea that, I don't think anyone's going to sit the Iron Throne. I think one of the big points of Game of Thrones, or one of the big central themes that's more important than any character's one arc, is the idea that they need to usher in a new era for this continent, for this world. And I don't think I will be really upset and dissatisfied if that era is just a better monarch, because it doesn't matter how good the one monarch is. First of all, you can never bet that they're going to be good forever. And plus, it is election by succession. And like I said before, all you need is one feckless heir, one set of brothers who hate each other, who are going to fight over succession. There's too much room for error when it comes to absolute monarchy, which is why we don't really have it anymore. So I don't think Dany was ever going to be able to sit the Iron Throne, and I think they had to make her completely unpalatable before they denied her that prize. The problem is, while the bits and pieces of her... The ability for her to lay waste to these cities and to do it emotionally and to feel like it's justified has always resided within her. We very rarely have seen Dany show people mercy who've offended her. She'll show slaves mercy. She'll show people who are powerless mercy. But anybody who steps to her, for lack of a better word, gets burned to a crisp, or beheaded, or executed, or nailed to, or crucified. And
anybody who makes the choice not to follow her, as opposed to is pushed. Anybody who has wheels of their own.
Exactly. And it makes sense given her character growing up as somebody with virtually no agency, which is a comparison we can draw to Cersei. If you are any threat to me, I'm getting rid of you, because anybody who's been a threat to me has been a huge problem. And anytime Dany has given away any power, she's lost a mile, and it's blown up in her face. So the bones of this revelation are all there, but the problem is they've been painting her as a savior for the past 7 seasons, and given this particular cultural moment, people really liked that. And they liked the fact that Dany was shooing off people who would oppress her and abuse her. And they liked the fact that she was killing slave masters. It wasn't a great look when, she was white savior. But the show has made her a hero, and they cannot undo all of that in 5 episodes. Not to mention the fact that we are in the middle of third wave feminism, or just post it. we are in a Me Too era, and we are in an era where people are really questioning Hollywood's representation of women and people of color in front of and behind the camera. This is a show that is known for its indelicate treatment of female storylines, and it's a show that is just now getting known, and I don't know why this hasn't come up before, for the dearth of women in the writer's room or having been directors.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the moment where Daenerys Targaryen had to fall victim to her emotions, while a more calm man sits by and is just like, oh, that's not the way to do it. Is essentially going to have to pick up the pieces. The optics are so bad. I don't think it was.
Let's also add a scene of romantic rejection to the pile.
Yeah, and her mental health being tied to Jon's love for her and validation for her.
Yep.
A relationship that no one really cares about. Like, I don't think anyone's really invested in Jon and Daenerys. They just don't have enough chemistry, and it's too late in the game. But
there's only one incest relationship on the show now, so there's a key demographic Yep. That's got to change their loyalties now. And that is sister fuckers. That's the joke I'm making there.
Got it.
People who have sex with their siblings.
Got it. Yep. Specifically, cool. Siblings or twins?
No, not twins.
Okay.
And I guess this was not siblings because this is an aunt.
I was gonna say.
It's getting weird. It's getting weird even for me.
Talk too much about this. So I think, like, on the one hand, I think it was such a violent, such a sad, tragic turn for this character, and I don't think one that was well executed. But at this, and also just incredibly poorly timed from a cultural standpoint. Like, just could not have been worse timing or executed by people who have, like, who've built up worse credit with female audiences.
We're not going to end up writing on season 9, Alex. Not with this.
I don't think so. There's just this whole. I feel like this story had everything going against it. And I'm not surprised that people hate it and are rioting the streets, because it's on the one hand, it is very sad, and I think people don't want to face it. On the other hand, like, we didn't. Could we have seen this coming? Like, I really question that.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it just comes down to the fact that because they condensed this last season so much, these last 2 seasons so much, that we're seeing Daenerys laying waste to King's Landing as something that was triggered by 2 bad days.
Exactly. And people not liking her, and her boyfriend's family not liking her.
Yeah.
And it makes sense on paper. I think it's undeniable that it makes sense on paper, because...
Well, we'll find out when he finishes the books.
They are not already finished, by the way. He's very clear about that.
Yeah, that's...
Did you see the Not a Blog on that?
Yeah, I did.
Eviscerated internet
journalists. For those who are... for those who are out of the know, apparently a month ago at a con in Russia, the actor who plays Barry Selmy said, "Oh yeah, George has got the books done, and he's just sitting on them because he's got an agreement with D&D to let HBO finish the story first."
I didn't realize.
Yeah, that's where that all came out.
I didn't realize that.
That I can't recall off the top of my head where. The actor who plays Barristan Selmy, but he's the guy who was saying, "Yeah, it's all done," and George is just sitting on it on HBO's request.
That's how publishing works.
Yeah, that's. I mean, realistically, they could give enough money to the publishing company to make it happen. But it's not what's happening.
No, I mean, it's just so not what's happening. I don't know. But yeah, at the end of the day, I look at this from a book perspective, and it makes so much sense. so much sense. And I think I kind of had tricked myself into thinking we'd get somewhat of a happy ending, because I really, really want it. I just want Catelyn and Ned
They
back.
said bittersweet.
I ignored
They said that the ending would be... Well, I haven't seen any sweet.
I thought the bitter part...
Unless we end with Arya showing up at Storm's End.
With lemon cakes.
With lemon cakes and Nymeria.
I mean, it's... I basically heard the bittersweet thing and was like, oh, so sweet. It'll be a sweet ending. Just ignore that first part.
I mean, it's... If you don't like King's Landing, there's a lot of great new waterfront property that just opened up.
Also, King's Landing is much bigger than I remember it.
Yeah. Well, that's because Cersei's been doing a great job. Cersei's been great for the economy.
Yeah, I mean, she's basically, like, killed so many people that resources are more abundant. Yeah.
Plus, they had to build out, because there's that giant sinkhole in the middle of town now. That's something we didn't see, is we didn't see a flaming hole, or a hole of rubble where the Sept of Baelor was.
That's because Tommen is there. Tommen filled it up.
Oh, yeah.
They buried Tommen where the Sept once stood. There's the Sept and then a small grave that just says Tommen on it.
Tommy.
Cats.
Sir Pounce.
Yeah, cats hang out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just...
All right, we've gone off the rails.
We've gone off the rails a little bit. Yeah, I'm with you. Like, in the moments when this happened, like, I left a friend a voicemail and I was like, this is just character assassination. I don't know what the fuck to do with myself. Like, just a mess. And now it's just like, oh, this just is what it is. Like, they're trying to hit they're trying to hit all these major tent poles. They don't have enough time to do it cleanly.
Yep.
So it's very blunt and it's really aggressive, and I feel like I haven't, like, this is Red Wedding levels of disappointment for me. Or, like, honestly, no, more like Drogon or Ned dying.
No, because Red Wedding was not disappointing. It was shocking.
Oh, man, I was heartbroken. I was so sad and disillusioned.
But it's a different kind of disappointment, though.
I understand what you're saying. It's sort of, but I couch them in this, I put them in the same file as, like, oh, this isn't going to go the way I wanted it to go. Like,
okay, got it.
Wherever this goes, it's going to be worth it. All my favorite people are dead. Like, I haven't felt, really, though, I think the better comparison for me would be to Drogon or Ned, these people that I just admired so much, and getting taken down brick by brick.
Drogon or Drogo?
God, Drogo.
Okay.
I've conflated them so long. So how are they going to kill Drogon?
The horse.
Tywin Lannister's horse. It's going to show up, like, with a silencer.
So, there's a meme that I saw, and this will kind of be where we end it, and it's Arya and the horse, and I forget if it's Benioff or Weiss. Yeah, we kind of forgot that Nymeria was a wolf.
I loved that. Oh my god, that was so funny. Well, we sort of forgot that Nymeria was a wolf. Yeah. It made so much sense.
This has been Johnny Reads the Internet.
When it comes to what happens next week, we still obviously have... It's not the last we're getting of Sansa. That's for sure. Do you think Brienne's pregnant?
We know Jaime doesn't shoot blanks. Oh my god.
He really doesn't shoot blanks. Like,
yeah,
bullseye every time.
Tormund Dundarian, I named you after the bravest people I knew.
Spits on Jaime's grave. Yeah, I'm kind of excited and scared to see how this wraps up next week, to see what the decision is, as I don't really think they can form a parliamentary government in the space of time left, at least not to my satisfaction. I really don't want Sansa to sit the Iron Throne. She's dealt with enough.
Brienne's gonna show up and that baby's gonna be 3 years old.
Yep. And, like, at her waist.
Yep.
I don't know. Do you think Dany's gonna die?
I think Dany's absolutely gonna die.
Yeah, I think such part of me is like...
I think Dany's gonna die. I think Arya and Jon Snow are gonna survive. I think Tyrion's down.
Yeah, I think Tyrion's down. I think I heard a leak a long time ago, months ago, that described the last sequence. One of the last scenes they shot. No, I'm not going to say it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to say it. You can listen
to our podcast. That's probably good.
No, yeah, I know. I just yeah, and I'm very curious to see if that's actually what happens. But I'm with you. I honestly think Tyrion is looking for a way to die at this point.
I think he's been looking for a way to die since he left King's Landing the first time.
A little bit, yeah.
I think we've talked about this on the show maybe 2 years ago, but Game of Thrones, or A Song of Ice and Fire, was originally pitched as 3 books.
Right.
And part of the arc was Arya and Tyrion end up married.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That love triangle, really...
Yep, that Arya, Sansa, Tyrion love triangle.
I thought it was Arya, Jon, and Tyrion.
Oh, Arya, Jon, and Tyrion, you're right, yep.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Dany's going to die. I just don't know how it's gonna happen. I would love the idea of her and Jon just like riding Drogon off into the sunset, but that's bullshit. That's not gonna happen.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really excited for the conversation between Jon and Dany. I'm excited for him to confront
if there
her.
is one.
Yeah, that's true. I could honestly see Jon just turning tail and being like, fuck a Lannister, fuck a Targaryen, I'm out, and taking his armies back north.
I'm taking the black, but there's no wall anymore. We'll build one.
There's a wall, it just needs a patch.
Yep.
I could see Jon going back to Castle Black for sure. And just being like, hey, if there's one thing I've learned is that just when you think there isn't a Night King, there's a Night King.
Mm-hmm.
I could see that. I think Dany and Drogon have to be eliminated in some capacity.
Oh, yeah.
For sure. I just don't want to think about how. It makes me really sad.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to have a happy ending, Johnny.
No, I
And I've been paying attention.
Yeah. I have... I don't think we're going to see a laugh-a-minute finale.
No.
But if we do...
There'd better be dancing.
I
wouldn't mind it.
We haven't gotten a musical episode yet.
That's a good point. I wouldn't mind a jump forward in time. Like, nice 10-year, 25-year jump.
Ending a Harry Potter moment?
Ish, yeah. I think that would be interesting. I really want to, the important thing for me, my biggest priority is that this series ends with some kind of lasting change being made to Westeros, because I think the only thing that makes Ned's death not just a fucking fuck you senseless tragedy is the idea that his kids will pick up the mantle and change the way things are done, so people like Ned don't die in King's Landing. Maybe they don't rule, and maybe their values aren't permeating Westeros, but maybe it's not such a maybe Westeros isn't such a snake pit when all is said and done. Maybe they figured out a way to make some lasting change so that things like the War of the Five Kings, people like Tywin Lannister, people like Olenna Tyrell,
the Mountain,
like people like the Mountain, aren't allowed a chance to thrive as much as they were under the last regime, and and people like the Targaryens, tyrants, aren't allowed to have this much power.
Yeah, can't die in King's Landing if there's no King's Landing.
This is true. I was so excited, dude. I was so excited yesterday when I was like, oh my god, the throne is gone. The throne is gone. I was right. And then somebody was like, no, there's still plenty of the castle left. And I was like, Never mind.
Well, if you're right...
I don't think I am.
We'll find out next week.
I think we're going to get that shot of... I think Dany's going to walk through the throne room, and it's going to be covered in ash.
Yep.
And she's going to sit on it.
Yep.
Which will be kind of neat. I think that'll be an interesting... I would like Dany to actually get the chair at this point. If she's just going to die afterwards, I would like her to... If she's sacrificed every ounce of her integrity...
Yeah. She's just going to take the chair, strap it to Drogon, take it to Dragonstone, and put her feet up. Dragonstone's a better looking throne anyway.
What if she just like... What if they just kill Drogon and dump her on Dragonstone and they're like, make it Alcatraz for one?
Yeah.
Like, you stay here and you think about what you did.
Mm-hmm. And then Davos comes, gets her.
Davos hangs out with her. She kills Davos and uses his body as a raft.
As a boat.
What do you want from this at the end of the day?
That's a good question. I think that Jon's got to kill her and break up the Seven Kingdoms entirely.
Organize.
Yep. But in a good way.
Yeah, and that we're better off as friends.
Yeah.
I don't love that idea because it feels like a step backward, not a step forward. But if like I would rather that than Jon or Sansa on the throne. I would also like Bran to matter more.
I think we're past that.
I guess so. Looks like it.
Unless, our closing scene, him training Brienne and Tormund's baby to be the next three-eyed raven.
If I were Brienne and Tormund, I would run away from that.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I think what this week did do was cure me of the danger of expectation.
Yeah.
And I genuinely, like I said, did not realize how invested I was in Daenerys until
we've talked about Daenerys going Targaryen all season, and still were surprised when she went Targaryen.
Well, I think that no one expected...
Or to the extent.
I just don't think this is irredeemable. Like, they really aggressively made her irredeemable. Like, our heroes...
It was, we've got to kill her next week, so we better have a damn good reason.
Exactly, and I think that's confirmed by the fact that you see our heroes, the people who are still pretty much unassailable, Jon and Arya, who don't have a lot of red in their ledger, look at her, and they are agape and afraid, and...
Yep.
If Jon doesn't take care of it, Arya will. Or at least I feel like that's going to be a conversation. So I think that was the real clincher for me, was not only seeing Dany do that, but then seeing the perspectives of two pretty intact heroes look at her and look at her and in no uncertain terms look at her as like the evil reign of fire that she is. I think that was what sealed the coffin for me. Final nail in the coffin, I guess.
Well,
she burned brightly.
Yep.
But yeah, it'll be very, very interesting to see. It'll be interesting at this point to see how it wraps up. You and I will be watching together, actually.
Yeah.
It's gonna be fun.
Yeah. Stoked.
Thank you guys so much for sticking around with us. We appreciate your patience as we have not been super consistent rescheduling of these episodes, but thanks for sticking with us, and we will definitely be back with you for one more Game of Thrones episode recap.
Yeah. Guesses on the title?
No. I don't know. A Dream of Spring?
Yeah.
It hasn't really been winter down south.
No. Has Fire and Blood been an episode title yet?
I feel like, yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. We'll see. It could be a Ned quote. He who passes the sentence. I'd be surprised if that wasn't referenced again.
Yeah. That was something that my wife Katie brought up with Varys' death.
Yeah.
Was that she didn't swing the sword.
Well, her dragon did. That's kind of the same.
Kind of the same thing, but not quite.
Dany's not good with the sword. It would have been Sir Roderick and Theon all over again. This was a mercy.
Yeah.
I read some posts about people shitting on Dany, because there's a lot of Dany hate this season, but shitting on Dany for like not knowing how to use a weapon, and somebody was like, cool, her dragon's her weapon and she's really good at using it.
Yep. This was the first time that she was really good at using it, though.
Yeah.
Other than maybe Beyond the Wall, but we don't talk about that episode.
No. Precision dragon riding.
Yep.
Okay. Well, thank you, folks. We'll be back next week with our discussion of the series finale of Game of Thrones. It's
hard to say.
Been really fast. Like, another way this shortened season has been kind of a whirlwind is that I just feel like we just started.
We start.
We really did. Like, it's just, wow. It's been a whirlwind. I'm not ready for it. I'm not ready for it to be over. This has been fun.
Yep. Well, we'll be back with you soon.
We will. Talk to you soon, folks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.